Welcome to our video on mastering the Sicilian Dragon, one of the most aggressive and exciting openings in chess. If you are a fan of sharp attacking tactical positions, then this is the opening for you. In this video, we'll explore how to counter-attack against the most popular starting move in chess, which is e4. So buckle up, grab your dragon, and let's dive in. The Sicilian defense starts off with the move e4, c5, knight f3, d6, e4, takes, and now we have the Sicilian open variation. Continue with knight to f6, attacking the pawn on e4, white replies with knight to c3, defending the pawn, and here we play the move pawn to g6, which would be Sicilian Dragon variation. White responds with bishop e3, and we play bishop to g7. The whole idea of the Sicilian Dragon is our bishop on g7 acts like a powerful dragon along this diagonal. Our bishop is like a sniper and can control and attack many dark squares along this diagonal. In the previous move, although the move knight to g4 here looks tempting, it is a blunder because white can play bishop to b5 check. We are forced to block either with the knight or the bishop. If we block with the knight, he can just capture, and he capture again with check and wins our rook. So if we block with the bishop, now white has the move queen takes g4, winning our knight because our bishop is currently in pin and we cannot capture back the queen, which is why it's a blunder and we lose the knight. So be careful and watch out not to play the move knight to g4. So as we continue with this variation, most of the moves here are pretty fixed and general in the dragon variation. And now we have the main line, the Sicilian Dragon, which is also known as the Yugoslav attack. The key ideas in this position is, since black has already castled kingside, white will look to castle queenside, and both sides will look to attack each other's king. So white will look to push up his pawns over here to attack our black king, and we will do the same to push up our pawns over here on the queen side, try and attack his king as well. We continue with our development here with bishop to d7, looking to bring our rook over to c8 and occupying this file. White castles queenside, we play rook to c8 now, and our next move is we want to move our knight away so that we can attack the bishop, which is why white will usually drop back the bishop to b3, and here the old variation goes knight to e5, white plays h4, trying to attack us on kingside. We play pawn to h5, preventing the g4 push. White plays bishop to g5, and we follow up with rook to c5. There have been thousands of games played in the database for this variation, as it has been around for many decades, which is why we wouldn't recommend playing this line because your opponent most likely has knowledge on this variation as well. Instead, we will recommend playing a newer, lesser known move that may throw your opponent off guard. But before we continue, if you're enjoying the content so far and want to see more videos like this, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. The support allows us to keep creating amazing chess content for you. So in this position, instead of playing knight to e5, which is the old variation, we highly recommend you to play knight takes d4. Logic is very simple. White has to recapture back with the bishop, and as mentioned earlier, white looks to attack on our king side, and the bishop on d4 doesn't really threaten anything along this diagonal. White would rather have his bishop on e3 so that he could play bishop to h6, and then followed by kingside pawn pushes with h4 and g4. So by capturing the knight on d4, force the bishop to get out of this diagonal, and we slow white's attack a bit. And here, now we play the move pawn to b5. So instead of in the old variation where white gets to play pawn to h4 first, and we have to play pawn to h5 ourselves to prevent the advancements of the kingside pawn, now we are the one with the initiative, the pawn push. And here, white has a few options. The best engine line, which is recommended by Stockfish, is to play knight to d5. However, after knight takes d5, bishop takes, king takes, pawn takes, and after exchanging a few pieces, now all we have to do is to play pawn to a5, looking to trap the white bishop. On the next move, he has to move the pawn up so that bishop can retreat over here on a2. And after queen b6, this position is actually quite good for black and is very easy for us to play. Even though it might be what the computer recommended, but as a human, it is actually a very amazing position for black. Firstly, we have the open c file. We can march our pawns up later with pawn to a4, pawn to b4, trying to break open the a and b files as well. And we can also put our bishop on f5 later on, putting extra pressure on this pawn on c2. As mentioned earlier on in the video, white always wants to attack on our king side, and in this position, he hasn't even played an attacking move on our king side yet. And since so many pieces are traded already, white no longer has his dark square bishop to bring over to our king side to attack us. So, in my opinion, this variation looks pretty good for us, even though it is the top engine move. Let's take a look at the other lines. Now you might be wondering in this position, isn't the pawn on a7 free? Can white capture? The answer is yes. White definitely can capture our pawn on a7. However, this is exactly what we want white to do, because by sacrificing our pawn on a7, now we open up this a file for pieces to attack. We can play rook to a8 later on, and also queen to a5 to utilize the a file and attack its king. But before that, we push up our pawn again, pawn to b4, attacking his knight. His knight has to go back, and now we play queen to a5, attacking the bishop and utilizing the file. Let's say he moves his bishop back here to bishop to d4, and we have a couple of key moves here in a row which you need to take note. Firstly, we must play bishop to a4 here. The threat is actually very simple. On the next move, we are looking to play bishop takes b3. White cannot take back with the c pawn because of the pin, so he has to take back with the a pawn, and then we're looking to give checkmate in one with queen to a1. So white probably has to capture our bishop. We capture back with the queen, and now we're attacking the pawn and also putting pressure on this c2 pawn. White probably has to play king to b1 to defend the pawn on a2, and now here comes the next key move. The move is pawn to e5. At first glance, this might look like a bad move because it just blocks our bishop diagonal. Our pawn on e5 blocks our bishop, and it seems like, why are we doing this move in the first place? So let's say white retreats his bishop here to e3, and now the third key move in this variation is to play pawn to d5. Again, you might be wondering, are we just giving away another pawn? And yes, we are. And most likely white has to capture, because otherwise our threat is just to capture his e4 pawn on the next move, or we could even play rook to d8 and try to utilize this open file. So if white captures our pawn, now here comes the tactical blow, which is knight takes d5. We sacrifice the knight because if queen takes d5, now we have queen capture on c2 with check. The king has to go to a1, and now we capture the knight on e2. So if you take a look at the pieces, even though we sacrifice our pawns earlier on, we actually gain back all of our material, and this position is just crushing for black. We have too many threats. For example, rook to c2, looking to capture the b2 pawn. We can also, our queen is also attacking the g2 and the g2 pawn and the bishop on e3, and we can also play pawn to e4 on the next move to utilize this diagonal and give checkmate. Lastly, we can also play a rook to a8 to use this open a file with a move like b3 later on. So there are just too many threats for black in this position, and it should be easily winning for us. So just to recap, the three key moves in a row in this variation is firstly to play bishop to a4, threatening to capture and then giving checkmate in one move, and then after that, the next key position is to play pawn to e5 over here, attacking the bishop. Even though it seems like we're blocking our own bishop, on the next move we play pawn to d5 and we open up all the lines, all the diagonals, and we have really crushing attack as black. So let's go back to the variation and let's see what if white tries to attack our king side as well by playing pawn to h4, which is white always wants to do playing in the Sicilian Dragon. However, as you guys can see, since we already played pawn to b5 first, we pushed our pawn up before white. Actually, white is quite slow in attacking our king, because now we play pawn to a5 and we're looking to bishop again and also march our pawns up to attack the knight and the bishop. White has to play pawn to a3, again trying to give some breathing space for his bishop. Now we push the other pawn, which is pawn to b4, attacking the knight, and after captures, knight is under attack, and here white has to be very careful, because now that the a file is open, our idea again is to bring our queen to a5 and our rook to a8 to threaten checkmate, which is very dangerous for white, because if he plays a careless move like knight back to e2, now we have queen to a5 threatening checkmate in one move. If he tries to move his king in, we have rook to a8 and we have an unstoppable checkmate on a1. So as you guys can see in this variation, white had no chance at all to attack us on the king side because we captured white's knight on d4 earlier on, and we just begin marching up our pawns first and gaining tempos by attacking white's knight and bishop. And if we get to open up the a file, it's basically game over for white, as his counterplay on the queen side is too slow, which is why we highly recommend playing this variation instead of the O line. Thanks for watching our video on mastering the Sicilian Dragon. We covered the basic principles and a few key variations of this popular and aggressive opening. Hopefully, you're feeling more confident about adding this variation to your opening repertoire. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more chess content. In the comments below, let us know which variation of the Sicilian Dragon would you prefer playing, the new variation that we just showed, or would you still prefer playing the old variation? Thanks for watching, and we see you in the next video.